This is the real number line, also known as simply the number line. Any value that can think of, any real number value that you can think of lands on this number line. When I say real number, I mean any number that's not in the complex plane. That is all your fractions, all your decimals, all your whole numbers. It is a critical part of algebra because it's used for inequalities, inequality equations, graphing, and also operations with integers. So get to know the number line well, get familiar with it, locate where the numbers are. We see that it increases from left to right. Negative infinity is the lowest number, and then positive infinity is the highest, zero in the middle. So all negative numbers are less than all positive numbers, whereas a negative 10 is less than a positive 2. Okay, so now that you know what a number line is, let's look at some examples. Let's look at ordering fractions using a number line. Let's look at the two fractions, 1/3 and 1/5. Let's compare the two. Well, which one's larger? I do know that 1/3 is larger because if I have 1 of 3, that's greater than 1 of 5. 1/3, I know that to be 0.33 as a decimal, and 1/5 is only 0.2 as a decimal. That's one way, it's just to know your decimals. Now know your conversion. If you don't know that, you can also divide the numerator by the denominator with long division. 1 divided by 3 as a decimal, put my 0, I get 0.33. And I can stop at the first number because 1 divided by 5, add my 0, I get 0.2. Or we could use least common denominator. Least common denominator between 3 and 5 is 15. That gives me the following equivalent fractions of 5 over 15 and 3 over 15. And we can see if we have 5 out of 15, that's more than 3 out of 15. Once again, 1/3 is larger than 1/5. On my number line, we would see that as the following. You can see it here. It's a little blurry. I'm going to try to zoom that in. You can see my 1/3 is in front of the 1/5 to the right of it. The numbers increase to the right, so 1/5 is to the left of 1/3, greater than 0. They're positive numbers. Okay, so now let's look at ordering integers. Now we have the following values: -1, -3, -4, -6. As we can see on the number line, -6, although it's the biggest number, is the smallest integer because it's the furthest to the left. And so bigger numbers, as we stated before, are smaller when they're negative. And of course, all the positive numbers are greater than all the negative numbers, which means that positive 1 is far greater than a -6, as we can see. And in order, these following four numbers are least to greatest: -6, -4, -3, and -1. Okay, so we've looked at ordering fractions and ordering integers. Let's look at ordering decimals. If we look at the following number line, here we have all A through I, which will correspond to these values. Here we know, let's look at an easy one, 0. Well, 0 isn't out of those, but we know 0 is here. Let me bring it up. 0 is here. Okay, what about a positive 1.25? Well, here's positive 1. Here's positive 1.5, halfway between 1 and 2. And so halfway between 1.5 and 1 is a positive 1.25. And so we'll do them all the same way. Let's do a couple more. 3/4. That's less than 1. It's halfway between 1/2 and 1. So here's 3/4. How about for the negative numbers? A negative 1.5. Well, that's halfway between -1 and -2. It's a negative 1.5. What about a negative 1 1/4? That's 1.25. that's halfway between negative 1.5 and negative 1. Negative 1 1/4 is here, B. So you can go through and see if you can do all the rest in that same fashion. But that's how you order decimals on the number line, and you can see the negative decimals are going to be, all the negative decimals are less than all the positive decimals. And in order, when they get bigger, negative actually getting smaller overall, whereas the negative 1.5 is here and the negative 1.25 is here. A negative 1.25 is greater than a negative 1.5, less than 0. Another important concept we can cover with a number line is the concept of absolute value. And don't be afraid of the term. Absolute value just means the distance the number is from 0. In this example, we see absolute value of 3 is going to be, absolute value of negative 3 is going to be 3 because it's 3 units away from 0. So it's just the value of the number without a sign. And the absolute value is always positive. So negative 3, absolute value of negative 3 is 3. The absolute value of positive 3 is 3. Absolute value of 5 is 5. And we can see from this example, 3 is to the left of 0, 3 units. 5 is to the right of 0, 5 units. And so let's look at a couple of examples. So here we have the following example. We have the absolute value of 6 and negative 7. We want to compare which one is greater. Well, the absolute value of negative 7 is just 7. So that one's greater than 6. Here we have the negative absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of 2. The negative absolute value will give us a negative 5 because the negative sign is outside the absolute value. It doesn't, it goes after we evaluate what's on the inside of the absolute value. But negative absolute value of 2 is positive 2. So here we have a negative 5 and a positive 2. So the positive 2 is greater on the number line. Now here we have 1, absolute value of 1 is 1. But the absolute value of negative 1, and negative is on the outside, but this number on the inside is positive. So that's going to be a negative 1. We know all negative numbers are less than all positive numbers. And so that should give you a comprehensive understanding of the number line and absolute value, ordering absolute value, ordering integers, ordering fractions, and ordering decimals. Thank you very much.